Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kai, and today we'll be interviewing my good friend Emenike. He is a software engineer who previously worked at MongoDB and is incoming at NVIDIA and will be going to Bloomberg as well. So today we'll be going through talking all about that. And yeah, welcome to the YouTube channel, Emenike.
Hi, so my name is Emenike. I'm a software engineer. Went to the University of Maryland, College Park. Last summer, I previously interned at MongoDB, and now I'll be incoming into NVIDIA for the summer, starting May 5th. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, let's get into it. So this is the video roadmap. We'll be going, so this is part one, and then we'll also have a part two and part three coming up later. So part one is covering the MongoDB software engineering internship as well as the recruiting process. And we'll also be covering our introductions, your background and hobbies, how you got into computer science at the University of Maryland, and then your thoughts on LeetCode, interview preparation, and all that stuff. And then we'll be ending it with MongoDB. Part two will be NVIDIA, and part three will be Bloomberg. So let's get into it. So, hello everyone. My name is Kai. I'm a senior at Wharton, where I'm studying finance, business analytics, minors in computer science and data science. And for this spring break coming up from March 8th to 15th, I'll be leading an expedition in Ecuador, just going from Cotopaxi to Antisana. And this is part of a school organization, and I am super duper excited. Bet. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said before, University of Maryland, 21 to 24. I am from Boston, so I'm a Boston Celtics fan. I was at their parade when they won the championship, and I'll be going this year as well when they win again. And so yeah, that's like my experience as listed, MongoDB, NVIDIA, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. So now let's get into your background and hobbies. Can you talk to me a little bit more about your childhood and how you, I guess, come across computer science, or what was it like growing up?
Yeah, so like my childhood, I always saw like I guess like I'm from like a pretty big family. I mean, I have like three other siblings, so like six people in my family as a whole. And so like growing up, my parents were just like starting out like when they had us. So like didn't really have like a lot of money when I was growing up. And I kind of got into computer science in like multiple different ways. One was like my dad, he was like very technical. He basically kind of like taught himself programming. He was able to get a bunch of contracting gigs and was able to like secure like a pretty good role at a pharmaceutical company and making good money like later on. But he was pretty much someone who like I've always looked at as like he's doing the right thing. And as a result, from a very young age, I kind of knew exactly. I wouldn't not say exactly, but I would say I definitely knew more than most like what I wanted to do like as I got older. I always said I was going to study computer science when I was like whenever I like really could conceptualize college, and that's what I did. I did exactly that. And I guess like, not seeing like my family have a lot in the beginning, I was kind of looking for like high leverage ways in which I can make money. And the most high leverage way I could possibly think of at the time was like building something online. So I kind of skipped like all the tutorials and I just like had an idea. It was like this real estate idea was like you basically auto generate websites from like listings. And so I skipped all the Python tutorials. I just skipped everything and I just like went straight to implementation. And it took a lot longer um than it was supposed to, but because I felt that like it was like so deterministic, I was able to just kind of go as fast as I want and really just like always like trying to trust the fact that I could get the correct result with like the correct input. So that's how I kind of got into CS. Academic background, I did fairly well in school. I went to a public school. It was a nice public school in Newton, Massachusetts. And then yeah, like did fairly well in college and I guess now I'm here. As for hobbies, you want me to get into hobbies now? Or
Yeah. Do talk about it.
so like currently I'm like trying to get better at like system design. I'm like reading the book Designing Data Intensive Applications. I feel like that will really like frame my mindset into kind of like trusting abstraction and like seeing beyond like the deterministic nature of like what I kind of like dealt with in school. You get a project, series of inputs, validate those outputs with the tests and stuff like that. Kind of need to like move on from that. So I'm kind of trying to become like my own um, trying to become like a leader or someone who has like a lot of autonomy over things that I build and that I'm a part of. I like working out, and currently I'm trying to decide if I should get into poker or chess. So we're doing that. Trying to pick up a hobby not related to computer science or like working out
Mhm.
is like what I'm trying to do. But something like, cerebral, So uh
What about something that's like artistic? Have you like thought about that or?
uh I mean like no. I probably should. Like I've been reading a lot. I was telling
Mhm.
like my girlfriend like I want to get into like reading fiction. I guess does that count as like artistic?
I think so,
Or
yeah. It definitely activates a different part of the brain compared to like computer science or chess or poker.
yeah, because like I watched this one video where this guy like he talked about like clarity like in the way that you speak, and he kept talking about like solving like those lexical gaps or like minimizing those lexical gaps um in the way like which someone talks. And he
Mhm.
was like, it wasn't like big words. It wasn't like, like esoteric words or whatever. It was more of like the conciseness of what you said was what it was the metric is what she was optimizing for. And so he said like reading a lot of fiction, like reading a lot of speeches and stuff like that would improve that. So yeah, that's probably what I'm gonna try and do later, or like sneak that in.
Gotcha, gotcha. And also, I heard that you're a big Boston Celtics fan. So, what are your thoughts on, I don't know, basketball and like Jalen Brown, everything on that front?
Yeah, so I mean, I like basketball because it's like, I mean, pretty much I was like the only sport I know the most about. I mean, it's the sport I know the most about. Granted, like there is football, but it just kind of depends on like if I'm gambling or if I'm doing something else. So like, yeah, but if I'm gambling, then I'm gonna do is like as much research. I'm like looking at the temperatures in the cities in which the players play. Like, if they're just like the probability they're gonna get randomly benched, stuff like that. I'm like looking at stuff like that. But I would say like I'm in the Celtics. I mean, I'm from Boston, so it's like my birthright to, I guess, like the team and to, that for that to actually be my team. And Jalen Brown currently is one of my him or Wemby. But Jalen Brown is currently like I feel like the most interesting player. I don't want to say favorite player because like I feel like that changes a lot, but he's definitely one of the most interesting. Like he's like I think he's a person who's very well rounded. I think he definitely chases. He's definitely in the pursuit of um, something intellectual. Like he gave a talk at like Harvard and like MIT. He was also captain of his Berkeley chess team. I don't know if that was because we have an NBA prospect, the captain of our chess team. Like we gotta have that. But the fact that he's taking interest in all these like all these like areas in of like life, I think is really speaks to like his I guess like his Renaissance capabilities. But yeah.
Mhm. Gotcha, gotcha. And then now let's get into your computer science early beginnings. So you mentioned that your dad got a bunch of, I guess, coding gigs and contracting work and was able to get into a nice pharmaceutical company. How did your dad's work with computers influence your upbringing? And I guess what made you stick with computer science and working with computers?
I think it's just like early exposure. I was like really, I mean, when you're a kid, you're like really impressionable, right? And so just seeing like stacks and stacks of computers like coming in all the time and him just like reading all these manuals, like all these like new like frameworks, like he always like read a lot. Like there was just books and books and books that he like always like he just like was reading all the time. And seeing that, I couldn't really conceptualize any other like occupation. And my dad is he's a very good man. He's like probably like the best person I've ever met. And so like seeing something like that, it just felt like it was like the right thing to do at the time. And I guess when I began to like I guess rationalize what exactly is a job and you're supposed to pick a job, um, like the staying value with what I grew up with at the time was like so high that I couldn't really like deviate if I even like wanted to, and I didn't want to. And I think that I stuck with it because when I was getting into it, I would like code something up. The error log will be right there. It'll tell me what I did wrong. And if I didn't understand the error log, it was because like I wasn't like it was a skill issue, right? And so like when you go to school and you write an essay, it's like a heuristic is being evaluated. I mean, they're applying a heuristic to your like your essay, and so it could be right. You could interpret it to be right, but there's no deterministic way to evaluate if it's actually correct. Like no universal function to
Yeah.
evaluate if it's actually correct. So that's why like I guess I stuck with it. I'm really simplistic like that in a sense.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So like yeah, the deterministic nature of computer science, I guess, very much appeals to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would like to now, I guess, pivot into your thoughts on LeetCode. Um, we had
Okay.
a previous guest on this channel who did absolutely zero LeetCode problems, and
The Amazon guy, he did
yeah,
zero.
he did
What?
five.
Wait, did he get it early? Did he do like did he get Amazon really early or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He got
uh,
Amazon early, but he only did five problems.
I You see, it really is just a random like luck based. You have to generate your own luck. Like that's like the metric you kind of have to optimize for in a sense when
Yeah.
you're like applying jobs.
Yeah, yeah, but in spite of that, I guess what are your thoughts on leak code and should people do leak code? Is it important? And what are other benefits other than just, I guess, for technical interviews do you see leak code having? And just talk all about that.
Okay, I'm just reading the questions. Yeah, so one is leak code important? Yes. I feel like the next questions will dive into why. And the benefits, it'll get you a job, right? The main benefit that most people the reason why it's a company today is because it will help you get a job. That's like the main benefit. It's value proposition. My leak code journey. So I guess I've always knew what leak code was, and I remember like hearing about it with guys like Joma Tech and like all these like tech YouTubers and stuff. And I remember seeing someone post they bought a leak code premium subscription on Instagram. And I was like, what the like, am I just like missing out? Am I doing something wrong? I started like, kind of get anxiety from it. I Googled the subscription. It was like low-key expensive for me. It's like I think like $100 a year or something on a discount. So I was like, people are really investing this much into it? Like I am definitely doing something wrong. And that was like my sophomore year. Like my junior year, like my girlfriend actually told me that MongoDB was coming to campus, right? So like that's the reason why I went, because she told me. And I was really excited to go because I've been using the product for like a long time, even prior to that interview. And so like when I got the interviews, like I started like leak coding a lot. So I just did like the new code 150 and I kind of just like breezed through that on the tree section and like the array section. Some of the graph problems I just kind of like focus on the conceptualizing it and just like doing a few problems because I didn't have a lot of time. And towards like so like at the end of the what's it called? Of like the interview process, like at to like the final round interview, like the questions they asked me, I felt like were like very fair. So I've always realized, I don't know if it's as I did more interviews later on, coding interviews are most of the time very fair,
Hmm.
right? Like I've like I don't know why I did so many hards for like my subsequent ones, even realizing that they got a lot easier as I like got into the interviews, but that was just like my approach. So to go into the NVIDIA one and the Bloomberg one, so when Bloomberg came to campus, they came to UMD and they had like a lobby day. Basically, like I just got someone's like a LeetCode premium account and I did like the Bloomberg tag questions. And so like I did all the 3 months and then I did all the hards in the 6 months. So I did like around 350-ish problems or like around 320 and 350-ish. I did that like I did that like across 1,000 repetitions. And so like I was just like looking at like yeah, I would just like I knew like the strategy I had to like optimize for was that uh at my best I could probably like solve five a day before like being really mentally exhausted. Like five medium, so three medium, two hards, like and then I wouldn't be able to compute anymore. And I knew at the time like I probably had a week until like my first round interview if I was gonna be given one. And so like there was just no way I was gonna like crush even 100. Like there's just no way. So what I did was like I split it up. I had like five problems that I was just like that I knew the technique for, but I didn't really know the application that well. And I would just like look at the solutions. I would find similarities in the code structure, and I put it all up in my monitor so I can like switch between them very quickly. I took notes on the code structure, like why are you doing this? Like philosophically, like, why is this approach always used? Example, like backtracking, like there's for loop and recursion across like 99% of like backtracking problems, and there are cases where you have to do double recursion. So two recursive functions or calls in like the same and within like the same function. So studying like when to apply each of them, like what are the added benefits, and then verifying those notes against like the next five to see if they showed up again, and then solving the next batch of like 5 to 10 problems after that, where I would actually like mentally solve a few of them. If I could get it really quickly, then that would be fine. If I couldn't, then I actually dedicate the time to solve it. I always try to solve 5 out of the 10 problems that I'm like basically attempting. So that was like the pipeline in which I was able to actually kind of go through. And because I was like really stressed out, by day three, I was able to like get close to like to 20-ish to like 30-ish problems in a day. And then after I like passed that interview, I started getting a lot better and I was able to just like breeze through like 40 in a day based off that strategy.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it was like and the thing was I got so the last thing about like the technique is to a point you have to kind of graduate from watching LeetCode because he like talks a lot and I get it. He's trying to like front load all the information you need because new people are coming to his videos. But if you can't like read code, it's like a much bigger issue. Like just go on LeetCode, apply whatever heuristic to like see like which solution is a good solution or which one isn't, and just like read the code because it's like a lot faster to do that than if you just watch the videos. And
Yeah.
then at what point I feel ready for my technical interviews, I never really felt ready until the first interview. And then when I did well on the first interview, then I was just like a lot more confident for the next ones. And so like but I always thought I did bad after every interview because I would always try to find like this tiniest thing that I did wrong. But in reality, like, looking back on it, I was like, I didn't even do that wrong. Like I'm literally like imagining it wrong. I'm like psyching myself out. And then consistent burnout. I mean, like how I stayed consistent was that like the month of October was a really stressful month because I knew that everyone was grinding LeetCode, everyone was like doing school, and like everyone was applying like hundreds of jobs.
Yeah.
So like here I am, all my friends are like not here, and if I don't get a job now, like it was just I could just tell it was gonna be like a lot harder to get a job like later on. And so I was just really stressed. So I kind of just like gave up school for the month of October. And I just like leveraged myself through my friends to help me out, like
Mhm.
on like Fridays, and I would just do all of my coursework on Fridays, and I would just try to be as efficient as possible. I just like didn't really study or do anything related to school. I just 5 a.m. to like 12, I just leak coded. That's like what I did for like 30 straight days in the
Mhm.
month of October. Because like you kind of have to give up something pretty hefty in order to give yourself an advantage that like because everyone's like doing so much. And I know that like if you're in school for like 6 hours a day, doing schoolwork, going to class, whatever, 6 hours a day, if I just give myself 6 hours of like LeetCode, like I will probably like do a lot better.
Mhm.
And so like I went to also every computer science like event, every job recruiter event on campus. I like read the newsletters and I was like always like the first person there. And that like really helped. That's how like Bloomberg happened as well. And burnout, you can't really avoid that. Like if you give a lot, you're gonna expect to pay that like later. That's just how I guess like energy works in a sense. So I definitely burned out heavy. Like after that, schoolwork was hard. Like even writing a simple function, I was like, nah. But like everything, activation energy for a lot of things just was a lot higher, was so much higher after that. It's kind of crazy how it worked.
Gotcha, gotcha. And then I guess the just to give more context, these two screenshots here are the amount of problems that you solved on two separate accounts. Is that right?
Yeah, so like the top one is no, the top one is mine, like mine fully. The bottom one is I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble, but like I share a premium account. So like I did like a pretty decent portion. There was some overlap as well, but
Mhm.
most of those ones were like Bloomberg related ones because it was on the premium related account, premium account. So yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. And then now we'll be going into, I mean, I guess we sort of touched on this already, but like, what would you change about your leak code or like your interview preparation? Is there anything that you would recommend to a younger audience member watching this?
Yeah, like I mean, I guess I feel like the advice I would give would be more focused on foundations and things that don't change because I'm not even sure LeetCode will be around in like 2 years, like 3 years realistically. And but I would say being extremely realistic is probably like the best thing you could do for yourself. I was really privileged for the fact that I only had two classes. So I could sacrifice a lot. I could dedicate a lot of time to like going to job events, waking up on time, traveling across campus, outside of campus to go to these job events. And as well as like I could also dedicate more time to just grinding LeetCode. Like I could afford to do that. So you have to really play to your strengths. Like what do you have? Like what kind of advantage you have over other people? And then when it comes to like LeetCode, like can I do five problems a day? Like most people say like, oh, I LeetCode like so much. I spend so much time on LeetCode, but really volume is what matters. Like getting good at LeetCode is a function of how much time you have, as well as how much of that free time do you dedicate to LeetCode. And it's like a contiguous block. So it's not like sporadic because like context switching is expensive. So
Mhm.
like how many contiguous blocks and the size of those contiguous blocks of free time do you have? And then how much of that are you going to dedicate to LeetCode? So like that's what, getting good at LeetCode is about pretty much. And definitely play to your strengths. So you want to maximize those contiguous blocks. So like, yeah, it was kind of crazy because like, if I told people like, oh, like at one point I was like a C straight student in like two of my classes during the midterms. Yeah, I got like those offers. Like it would be like it wouldn't make any sense. Like you would think the person kind of get those offers is like a really smart,
Mhm.
disciplined guy in all areas of life. But like, that wasn't me. Like I just like min-max the system, and that's pretty much what you kind of need to do. Like what advantage you have over others is pretty much how you should always be thinking if you're trying to get a job. And
Gotcha.
luck does matter. So like you always want to like generate your own luck. Because I went to like the lot if I didn't go to the lobby day for Bloomberg, like what wouldn't have happened? If I didn't just like randomly apply to NVIDIA and just be like, let me just give it a shot, that wouldn't have happened. Like I didn't know NVIDIA just like actually read their resumes and passed them along to their teams. I didn't know that. I just applied. So you kind of have to always put yourself out there and maximize like opportunities of luck. But yeah, luck does matter. I wouldn't have gotten lucky. Like I was born in the US. International students will probably like are like they have it a lot harder because they weren't
Yeah.
born in the US.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then now we will be going to the MongoDB internship, and we'll give a quick brief on what MongoDB is. So this is from what I know, and then feel free to add on. So MongoDB is basically Google spreadsheets. It's a way of like, collecting all this data, but without rows or columns. They use
Right.
documents instead, and these documents are able to house a bunch of unstructured data,
Yeah.
and they're basically like interconnected with like, I guess, the spreadsheet as well. And then the main benefit of this is space efficiency. You don't have to have redundant rows or columns,
Yeah.
and it's the best way to handle unstructured data. Any thoughts on this or?
Yeah, it's pretty much like you said. I would say, yeah, like I would say that like in terms of like the structured, unstructured, semi-structured, like typically you want to keep the documents small. Um, that's like pretty much like what I kind of know about like NoSQL or document-based databases. But yeah, it's like pretty efficient because like there's like better data locality. If you want related data, chances that it exists in the same document is pretty high, and you don't have to like go somewhere on disk to retrieve that data. Because like NoSQL, you could have like a reference to Kai, and then Kai, you have a bunch of attributes about yourself, like
Mhm.
your school, and that school is also a reference to like somewhere other table that like gives all the descriptions of like that school. So to get all the information about you, I have to like go to like all these places on disk, which kind of takes time, and then I have to like get that over to you. Whereas if it's just all in a single document, I can just fetch that document. I can just like relay over to you. So it's a lot faster. And in some ways, it's basically just trade-offs. You have to kind of like look at why you want to use MongoDB. But yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. And then now we'll be going to the recruitment process and I guess the internship experience. So how did you really prepare for this, and what were some of the questions that they asked you throughout the interview? Or like what are they looking for, would you say?
Um, sorry, I'm just trying to look and find myself. If you guys can find me in one of the pictures, this one, the first one. If you guys can you guys which one I am?
Are you the one like right in the middle or?
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah, which one could I possibly be? Now, but how I prepared and got the internship. So, like I said, like they came to my school, right? And so when they came to my school, like my girlfriend let me know. She wasn't my girlfriend at the time, but it was great that she did that. and I went. And so I built an app. When they came there, I already had an app that I built with MongoDB. It was just basically like this it was like a map, and if you could you can click on any building and it'll just give you like a live counter and a bunch of metrics related to that building. So a live counter of people in that building, gender, major, stuff like that in a chat, and had like a live chat. So that's all it was. And the database to support that was MongoDB. And then I got lucky, right? I got lucky that one, the recruiter came to my school, and then someone told me that they came to my school. So all I had to do was like really show up. And when I went there, she really liked the fact that I knew a lot about MongoDB because like I've used it. And she also liked the fact that I built an app with MongoDB that I could just like show her and she could interact with it. And then just like that, like she gave me an interview, which was like a phone screen. And in that phone screen, she was like, we talked a lot. And so we talked a lot like at the event. So she didn't really spend a lot of effort on the phone screen. She just like went through like the checklist and it was like, what kind of databases in the MongoDB, like no SQL or SQL. It was like questions like that.
Huh.
And just like answered all of those. Those were pretty fine. And then so from there, I got the next interview, which is a care interview. It's a third-party service that you basically interview with someone. It's on Zoom, and they like kind of do a technical interview on behalf of said company. So in this interview, it was like I said, I always think I did bad in interviews when in reality I didn't. But anyway, it was just like very basic questions like time complexity of removing an element in the middle from a heap, and what's the time complexity of like doing that. And like they kind of that's like a trick question because you think like removing from a heap is like log of n, but removing an element from the middle of a heap is actually like it's like O of n because you have to like reheap it, and that's
Yeah.
like O. So questions like that, but if you have like a set and an element is like New York and then New York with a capital N, like are they like the same one? Is that like are they like the same element in the set? Like things like that. And then like there was like a speed coding round where he like just gave me a long like prompt and I had to like reverse engineer like populate all these like airplane tickets and prices. And it was just like problem after problem after problem until like the time ran out. And so I was really nervous because like I really didn't like understand him that well and like emailed the recruiter about it. And she was like, "Oh, I got your performance back. It was like really good." And I want to move on to the final round. And the final round was like really nice. Honestly, like the first question I got was given two arrays that are sorted, generate a list of elements that contain like the intersection of those elements in the array of those two arrays. So like just return the intersection of those two arrays.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's
you have to do it in like O of one space and O of n time. So I use a two-pointer strategy to do that. And then
okay, yeah.
and the next one was like give it a stringified JSON object, turn that into a regular JSON object. So just like simple recursion, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, my mentor actually was the one who like came up. My manager was actually the one who came up with that question. Funny enough, but yeah. So working at NYC, people think that like expectations versus reality. Reality wise, I feel like people think that. I feel like expectations and reality is like they actually like are pretty like well aligned. One thing though is like it's expensive, but when you come there, like you think you don't really see how expensive it is until you like go out with friends. You're like, what? Like I just spent
Yeah.
easily like $200 in one night. I
Yeah.
local bar like club here is like $5 max for entry, and there was one time that elevated to 10, and I was like, I'm not going. In New York, it's like $60, $100 for some places, and like you don't want to look broke, so you just like you just pay, and then you just like quiver later. But it's like everything is just so expensive. Like going out doing, and everyone's making the same money. You're all just interns and stuff like that, but it's like ridiculously expensive. I have like a walk-in closet, my own bathroom in this place. I have a really big hallway. My living room is nice, and I pay like $1,000 a month. Go to New York. If I'm living there for full time, it's gonna be like I'm trying to look for places that is within $2,500 a month. So
And that's
like I think
fun.
that you think it's expensive, but it's even more expensive when you're there. And you're like, yeah. So I was really fortunate. They put us in the Columbia University dorm. So like my time in New York was like so fun, right? So I just hop out of my dorm. Everyone is chilling there. So we're like hanging out, like talking, and then when we go to work, we all go to work together, take the one train and directly like it's in Times Square, and the office is right above the train station. And like it was
Mm.
very startup-y. Everyone in Mongo was like, I mean, I don't know how it is now, but so nice. Like I could just play pool with anyone, Slack anyone to like play pool, ping pong. Everybody was like very, very nice. A ton of events. That's also the interns like all got together and like they hung out. It was very genuine. And I still talk to a lot of the people. I think one ghosted me though, but I still talk to a lot of the people at MongoDB today. But it was really fun. I think MongoDB was a really great time. I don't know how it is now though. Like they changed leadership, so it is what it is.
Oh, like new CEO or like new.
No, like they got like they've been bringing a lot of Amazon VPs and like people are saying, I mean, for what I've heard, it's like a lot more Amazon-y. So like I didn't get the return offer, right? But like the previous year, the return offer was 95%.
Mm.
Following year was like 15, like 15, 20. Yeah, it was so
Wow.
low. It was like so some people like I was like you like some craft people I knew was like they didn't get it. We're talking X like IMC, these guys didn't get it.
Wow.
It was
Gee.
it was brutal, brutal, man. And I was like, it was crazy because like the company had like an all hands at one point, and then the CEO was like, "We're not gonna do layoffs." I mean, he didn't say we're not gonna do layoffs. He was like talking about layoffs. He was like dancing around, and I'm like, "Oh, it's coming. Like it's coming, dude. It's
Mm.
bad." But but yeah, overall, despite all that, it's just a company. They really just like you trade your time, and they pay you. That's pretty much what it is. But good benefits, I guess. But yeah. So main project challenges, company culture. I already talked about company culture. When I was there, it was really good.
Mhm.
Like keep in mind, I was with people who came from like really like more prestigious like companies, prestigious with quotes, and like Uber, NVIDIA, and they were like, I'm gonna choose MongoDB over those companies. Like they were saying they were gonna take far less pay, far like uncertain like future or whatever, because the culture was like that good.
Wow.
And I'm not gonna lie, at one point I drank the Kool-Aid too. And I was devastated when I didn't get it. Like I was so devastated, I just like locked myself in my room, I just grinded LeetCode. Because I was like, I was like, I gotta get a job. But yeah, my project, I was on like it's a performance-based project. So the code base was in Go and React. And essentially, there was a new feature that came out with I think Go 1. I don't know 1.24 that allowed you to customize the compiler to look at like areas in the code base that like had functions, and you can replace those functions with the actual body of that code. And the reasoning behind that is
Uh-huh.
like when you call a function, you have to jump to that place in memory. And that function that in that place in memory has variables above it. So you can access those variables.
Yeah.
And just jump to that, access those variables, conduct your logic within that function. And then when that function returns, it actually pops those variables out the stack and then pops back to that return address of where you called that function, like one address after that to resume. So if you're doing that like a million times in let's say 10 seconds, there's a lot of overhead. You're doing a lot of like work to like go to that function address, access variables, then pop them back, et cetera, blah, 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 blah. So if you just replace that function with the actual logic, you don't really need to do that extra
Mm.
stuff. So that was like my project, implemented the compiler feature that took a profile, which was like how many seconds a function ran, and the compiler would essentially inline, so like it would just like do that optimization for like those top like 30 functions or whatever. So that was like my project, and I had to integrate that into like the CI/CD, wrote the profiler logic, and as well as like because like you're having specific profiles that customize to like the runtime of different services, because we were in charge of many different services that all like operated on one binary. We needed like specific profiles, so we split the binaries up so we can get specific runtime profiles for each of those services. So that was like my job. Created like the Kubernetes Helm files for that, provision them with ECR for those Docker images for those services and stuff. So it was really CI/CD and like some like application logic stuff that I did. But that was my project. I finished it. But yeah. And I guess like the challenges were like I wasn't really as proficient in like that's the crazy part. Like I wasn't really that proficient in a lot of stuff that I didn't think was super important, like Git, for example. Also, like one-on-ones were like something I wasn't good at, as well as like you have to like be a Slack power user. Like you really have to like understand how to use Slack. Like those meta skills that aren't directly related to like writing code is probably like more important because like and also like learning how to like do effective code reviews is like really important because like probably like my entire time there, I probably maybe eclipsed like 2,000 lines of code in like 10 weeks. I could pump out 2,000 lines of code on a personal project in like a day or two. But in 10 weeks, like 2,000 lines of code is like, it's like, at the time I thought it was like pathetic. But code reviews, you want to really make sure your code reviews are like within like 200 lines. If they're bigger, if it's a lot bigger, it's going to be a lot more time to review, like exponentially a lot longer to review. You want to make sure you heavily document like your PR, so like all the changes you've made, why you made those changes, etc. You really need to make like your PRs really like picture perfect, like a story. And then like most of my time, like 80% of my time was like writing tests and like making sure my PRs were like pretty. And I would just get shredded a lot in those PRs, but definitely learn a lot. Also, Git, like when you're working at a company, like learning how to be a power user of Git, like configuring your Git to make sure you can effectively see the logs, learning how to properly do diffs and like merge, learning like why you need to rebase instead of merge, like those kind of things that they barely gloss over. You need to like really hone that in. I was just coming from like commit, push, and like add. It's like a lot. It was a lot more than that. So like really understanding how to like configure your tool set to like make the job a lot easier is extremely important. And Slack. There's a ton of information coming on Slack, especially for my team. And I just thought like I just write my code like school, write my code, submit it, pass test, blah blah blah. That's it. No, like understanding what changes happen, offering your input, like being aware of all these like conversations and like I knew a guy who like read every single like text like Slack message that he was a part of.
Mhm.
Every single like during his lunch break, he would like just take notes on what was talked about. I was like, wow, it's so much more than just writing code. I thought I was pretty good at writing code. I was pretty clever at it, but no, like completely different. Being a software engineer is like so much more about like meta skills than it is really about like being a code monkey. And now AI is like basically like the best code generator out there. You really have to be a pro at those meta skills. So that was like the biggest challenge for me in a sense. And that's like the lessons that I learned and what would I do differently. So like right now I have like a PDF, not a Google Doc of like everything that I made a mistake at when I was at Mongo. And on top of that, I like wrote a ton of like notes on how to do an effective PR review in like different languages and stuff.
Mhm.
Like best coding practices and like refactoring and just like really trying to get in that mindset of like just writing like really clean, like dry solid code, like studying code philosophies, like an example, why you don't want your function to have too many parameters. It causes like test explosion, how to like unit test effectively, how to like differ between an integration test and a unit test, like really studying that and like understanding, seeing examples is like currently what I'm doing in like prep and really also like getting a good linter and making sure your code is well formatted such that in the code they're not like because every time they make a little mistake and they point it out, they're not actually like looking at your code for what it actually does.
Yeah.
Because then there's going to require multiple rounds. And before you can even get to like the meat and potatoes of your code, it's like already like way past the deadline, the pseudo deadline of that PR.
Mhm.
So really making sure you're like making it airtight, like no like misspellings, your linters are doing all the right jobs, doing all those code reviews, making it as efficient as possible, as thorough as possible is like the best strategy I would probably is the best strategy I can recommend for getting an effective PR out. But yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. So like I guess aside from coding, just knowing how to work in that environment and how to communicate with others and work in tandem with others is like another thing that you
Yeah, like knowing when to say no, minimizing context switching, but also like delivering value and also being aware of like everything that's going on related to your team is probably like and learning Git and stat, like learning those like really well is important. But yeah.